The wagon wheels kicked up dust as they rolled toward Fort Bridger. Inside, Elena Morales kept her left hand pressed against her cheek, hiding the twisted skin that told the story of a fire from long ago. She was 25 years old and running, away from a wedding she never wanted. "You'll never find a husband looking like that," her mother had said just 3 days before. "Don Rodrigo is old, yes, but he's willing to take you as you are. Think of your sisters. They need good marriages too." But Elena couldn't do it. She couldn't marry a man who looked at her scars with disgust, who saw her as damaged goods to be hidden away. So she packed her few belongings, took the money she'd saved from sewing, and bought passage on the first wagon heading north. The fort looked smaller than she'd imagined. Wooden buildings surrounded by a tall fence, with soldiers walking around, looking bored. Beyond the fort, mountains stretched toward the sky, and somewhere out there, she knew, Apache tribes moved like shadows across the land. "You sure about this, miss?" asked Tom, the wagon driver. "This ain't no place for a lady alone." Elena pulled her shawl tighter around her neck. "I'll be fine." But as she walked through the fort's gates, she wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. Men stared at her openly, some with curiosity, others with something that made her skin crawl. She kept her scarred side turned away from them all. The trading post sat at the center of the fort. Inside, shelves held everything from flour to bullets. Behind the counter stood a thick man with kind eyes named Henry Watson. "You looking to buy something?" he asked. "I'm looking for work," Elena said. "I can sew. I speak Spanish and some Apache." Henry's eyebrows went up. "Apache? How'd you learn?" "That? My grandmother was raised by missionaries near Santa Fe. They taught the local tribes. She passed some of it to me." It wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't a lie either. Elena had always been good with languages. "Well," Henry said slowly, "I do need help. Can't pay much, but there's a room upstairs. Small, but it's yours if you want it." Elena felt relief wash over her. "Thank you." That first week passed quietly. Elena worked behind the counter, helping customers and mending torn clothes. She kept to herself, always angling her face to hide her scars. The other women in the fort whispered about her, but she pretended not to hear. "Strange woman," said Mrs. Coleman one afternoon, loud enough for Elena to hear. "Pretty enough from one side, but that burned face makes you wonder what sins brought such punishment." Elena's hands shook as she folded a shirt, but she said nothing. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning in late September. Elena was sweeping the front steps when she heard gunshots. Soldiers ran toward the gates shouting orders. From the dust cloud approaching the fort, she could see riders coming fast. "Apache raid!" someone yelled. Elena dropped her broom and ran inside. Through the window, she watched as soldiers formed a line at the gate. The approaching riders weren't attacking, though. They were carrying someone. When the dust settled, Elena saw what had happened. A patrol had found an Apache warrior wounded and unconscious about 5 miles out. They'd brought him back alive, which was unusual. Most times it was shoot first and ask questions never. "Why'd you bring him here?" demanded Captain Morrison, the fort commander. "Thought you might want to." "Question him, sir," said Sergeant Brady. "He was carrying this." He held up a silver medallion. "Looks like Army issue." Captain Morrison's face went dark. "Put him in the stockade. Post guards." They dragged the unconscious Apache across the yard. Elena got a good look at him as they passed. He was young, maybe 30, with long black hair and strong features. Blood seeped through a bandage on his shoulder. But what struck her most was how peaceful he looked despite being captured. 3 days passed. The Apache warrior had woken up but refused to speak to anyone. Captain Morrison grew more frustrated each day. "He's faking," Morrison told Henry. "Acting like he doesn't understand English." "Maybe he really doesn't," Henry suggested. "Every Apache around here knows some English. They have to for trading." Morrison slammed his fist on the counter. "I need to know about that medallion. My brother went missing 6 months ago. If this savage knows something." Elena looked up from her sewing. "I could try talking to him." Both men stared at her. "What?" Morrison asked. "I speak some Apache. Maybe he'd talk to someone who isn't a soldier." Morrison laughed, but not in a nice way. You, a woman, and a scarred one at that? Heat rose in Elena's cheeks, but she kept her voice steady. What do you have to lose? He's not talking to anyone else. Henry nodded slowly. She's got a point, Captain. Might be worth trying. Morrison looked like he'd swallowed something sour. Fine, but I want a guard present. And if he tries anything. An hour later, Elena walked across the yard toward the stockade. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She'd never actually tried speaking Apache with a native speaker before. What if her grandmother's lessons weren't enough? The stockade was a small log building with iron bars on the windows. Inside, the Apache warrior sat against the far wall. When Elena appeared, he looked up. Their eyes met, and something unexpected happened. Instead of the hatred or fear she expected to see, his dark eyes showed only curiosity. He looked at her scars without flinching or turning away. Hello, she said in Apache, her pronunciation careful. His head tilted slightly. You speak the old tongue. Relief flooded through her. He understood. A little. My grandmother taught me. Your grandmother was Apache? No, but she lived among your people when she was young. Elena stepped closer to the bars. Are you in pain? The warrior, she still didn't know his name, touched his bandaged shoulder. I have known worse. They want to know about the medallion you carried. Something flickered in his eyes. What medallion? Elena realized he was testing her, seeing if she was just another soldier's tool. The silver one, army issue, they think. It belonged to a missing officer. For a long moment he said nothing, then, what do you think? The question surprised her. I think you're not the monster they believe you are. I think there's more to this story. And why would you think that? Elena touched her scarred cheek without thinking. Because I know what it's like to be judged by what people see instead of who you are. The Apache warrior studied her face carefully. Not with pity or disgust, but with something like recognition. My name is Ayanna, he said finally. Elena. Elena, he repeated, the name sounding different in his voice. You are not what I expected to find in this place. Neither are you. A guard's footsteps approached. Elena stepped back from the bars. Tell them, Ayanna said quietly, that the medallion belonged to a soldier who fell in battle. He fought bravely. That is all they need to know. And is that the truth? Ayanna's eyes met hers again. It is enough truth for now. Elena nodded and walked away, her mind spinning. She'd expected to find a savage like everyone said. Instead, she'd found a man who spoke of fallen enemies with respect. As she reported back to Captain Morrison, giving him Ayanna's message about the medallion, she found herself thinking about those dark eyes that had looked at her scars without judgment. In this place where everyone saw her as damaged, broken, unmarriageable, she'd finally met someone who seemed to see her as simply human. That night, lying in her small room above the trading post, Elena stared at the ceiling and wondered what other surprises tomorrow might bring. Outside, she could hear the guards making their rounds, keeping watch over their Apache prisoner. She didn't know it yet, but her whole world was about to change. The conversation with Ayanna had lasted only minutes, but something had shifted inside her. For the first time since arriving at Fort Bridger, she'd felt truly seen by another person, not as the scarred woman to be pitied or hidden away, but as someone worthy of honest conversation. Tomorrow, she decided, she would visit the stockade again. There was more to learn about this Apache warrior who spoke of enemy soldiers with honor, and more to understand about herself in the process. Elena returned to the stockade the next morning with a cup of warm broth and fresh bandages. Captain Morrison had agreed to let her continue talking to Ayanna, hoping she might learn something useful about Apache movements in the area. You came back, Ayanna said when she approached the bars. Did you think I wouldn't? In my experience, most people say what they need to say and disappear. He accepted the broth gratefully. This is kind. Elena began changing his bandages through the bars. The wound was healing well, but she could see older scars on his arms and chest. Each mark told a story of survival. "Where did you learn to heal?" he asked. "My grandmother again. She said every woman should know how to mend what's broken." Elena's fingers worked carefully around the injury. "These other scars, you've been in many battles. Each one taught me something." Ayanna watched her face as she worked. "Your scars taught you something too." Elena's hands stilled. "What do you mean?" "They taught you to hide, but hiding isn't always surviving." No one had ever spoken to her like this before. Direct but not cruel, honest without being harsh. "Tell me about your people," she said, settling cross-legged on the ground outside his cell. "Which people? The ones your soldiers call savage? Or the ones who call your soldiers the same thing?" Elena considered this. "Tell me about your real people, the ones you love." Ayanna's expression softened. "I have a sister, Nayeli. She is 16 with laughter that sounds like running water. She makes baskets so beautiful that even other tribes trade for them." "Is she safe?" Ayanna's jaw tightened. "No. She was taken 2 months ago during a raid on our camp. But not by soldiers." "Who then?" "Men who steal young women to sell them far from here. They came in the night, took 3 girls before anyone could stop them." His fists clenched. "I've been tracking them since." Elena felt cold understanding wash over her. "The medallion belonged to a soldier who tried to help us. Lieutenant Morrison, I think his name was. He was tracking the same men who took my sister." Elena's breath caught. "Morrison? Captain Morrison's brother?" "You know him?" "The captain has been looking for his brother for months. He's the reason they brought you back alive." Ayanna leaned forward. "Where is this captain?" "He runs the fort. He thinks you killed his brother. His brother died trying to save my sister and the other girls. We fought side by side against the slavers." Ayanna's voice grew heavy. "He took 3 bullets meant for me. I carried his medallion to honor his memory." Elena stared at him. "You have to tell Captain Morrison this. Will he believe the word of an Apache?" That was the question, wasn't it? Elena knew Morrison's hatred for all Apache ran deep, but she also knew his love for his brother ran deeper. "Let me talk to him first," she said. "Prepare the way." Over. The following days, Elena spent every spare moment at the stockade. She brought Ayanna food, news, and most importantly, conversation. He told her about Apache life, not the savage violence the soldiers talked about, but the real life. Families who loved each other, children who played games, elders who told stories around fires. "Your people make it sound like we're monsters," he said one afternoon. "Some of your people make it sound like we're monsters too," Elena replied. "True, fear makes monsters of us all." Ayanna studied her. "What made you leave your home?" Elena had never told anyone the full truth, but somehow the words came easily with him. She told him about the arranged marriage, about a lifetime of being seen as damaged goods, about the choice between becoming someone's shameful secret or finding her own way. "Your people waste their women," Ayanna said when she finished. "What do you mean?" "Among my people, scars are proof that the spirits tested you and found you strong enough to survive. A woman with scars like yours would be honored, not hidden." Elena touched her face self-consciously. "Really?" "We believe fire marks those chosen to be bridges between worlds. Someone who has survived flames can walk through any difficulty." No one had ever said anything like that to her before. She'd spent so many years believing her scars made her less than other women. The idea that they might make her more was almost impossible to accept. "I need to tell you something," Elena said during her visit the next day. "Captain Morrison is planning something. I heard him talking to his officers." Ayanna's expression sharpened. "What kind of something?" "He wants to use you as bait. Send word that he'll trade you for information about where the Apache camps are. Then when your people come, an ambush." Elena nodded miserably. I think he's planning to attack during the meeting. He's bringing every available soldier. How long do I have? 2 days, maybe 3. Ayanna was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was calm but determined. My people won't abandon me, but they also won't walk into an obvious trap. They'll send scouts first. Good ones. What can we do? We? Elena realized what she'd said. When had his problems become hers? When had she started thinking of them as a team? I can't let Morrison massacre your people, she said. Not when they're coming to save you. Not when I know the truth about his brother. And what truth is that? That his brother died a hero fighting alongside you. That's what Morrison needs to hear. That evening, Elena knocked on Captain Morrison's office door. Her heart pounded as she waited for permission to enter. What is it? Morrison asked without looking. Up from his papers, I need to tell you about your brother, sir. Morrison's head snapped up. What about James? Elena took a deep breath. The Apache prisoner knew him. They fought together. That's impossible. Your brother was tracking the same men who kidnapped Apache women, including Ayanna's sister. They were allies, not enemies. Morrison's face went white, then red. You're lying. That savage killed my brother. No, sir. The men who stole the Apache women killed your brother. Ayanna was trying to save him. For a moment, Morrison said nothing. Elena could see the war between hope and hatred playing out across his face. Even if that's true, he said finally, it doesn't matter. One Apache is the same as another to me. But it should matter. Your brother died trying to do the right thing. Don't dishonor his memory with a massacre. Morrison stood up so fast his chair fell over. Get out, and don't you dare speak to that prisoner again. Elena left the office with a sinking heart. Morrison wouldn't listen to reason. That meant the ambush would happen as planned, and good. People on both sides would die. As she walked back to the trading post, one thought kept repeating in her mind. She couldn't let this happen. But stopping it would mean betraying the fort, the only place that had given her shelter. It would mean choosing between the safety of the soldiers she lived among and the lives of people she barely knew. It would mean choosing between the life she'd built and the man who saw her scars as marks of strength instead of shame. That night, Elena lay awake staring at the ceiling, knowing that tomorrow would force her to decide what kind of person she really wanted to be. Outside her window, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. By morning, she would have to choose which side of the coming storm she wanted to stand on. The storm hit Fort Bridger just after midnight. Thunder shook the wooden buildings while lightning lit up the sky like angry fire. Elena sat by her small window, watching rain pound against the glass. She'd made her decision hours ago, but that didn't make it easier. In her bag, she'd packed water, dried meat, and bandages. Everything they'd need for a hard ride across dangerous country. She'd also taken Henry's spare pistol from behind the counter, though she hoped she'd never have to use it. Around 2 a.m, when the storm was loudest, Elena slipped out of her room and down the back stairs. The rain soaked her instantly, but it also covered the sound of her footsteps. The stockade guard was huddled under a small overhang, trying to stay dry. Elena crept around to the back of the building where a loose board gave her access to the wall. Ayanna, she whispered through a crack in the logs. Elena? What are you doing here? Getting you out. She pushed the bag through the gap. Can you reach this board from inside? Yes, but Morrison won't listen to reason. The ambush happens tomorrow night. Your people will walk into a trap. So you're risking everything to save an Apache you barely know? Elena worked at the loose board with her knife. I'm saving people from a massacre. Both sides. This will make you an outcast from your own kind. My own kind already sees me as damaged goods. The board came free with a soft crack. At least with your people, these scars mean something. Ayanna squeezed through the opening, moving carefully, to avoid reopening his wound. In the lightning flashes, Elena could see gratitude and something else in his eyes. Thank you, he said simply. Thank me when we're safe. They moved through the storm toward the fort's back wall. Elena had scouted this route during her morning walks. There was a spot where recent rains had washed away enough dirt to squeeze under the fence. As they crawled through mud and cold water, Elena wondered if she'd lost her mind. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a proper Spanish lady fleeing an arranged marriage. Now she was helping an Apache warrior escape from an army fort. "The horses are a mile north," she whispered as they cleared the fence. "You got horses?" "Traded my grandmother's silver for them. Told the seller I needed pack animals for a trip to town." She wiped rain from her eyes. "I hope you know how to get to your people from here." "I know every rock and tree between here and the canyon." Ayanna touched her arm. "But Elena, once we leave here, there's no going back. You understand this?" She nodded. "I understood it before I packed my bag." They found the horses where Elena had left them, tied to trees in a small grove. 2 sturdy animals that could handle the rough country ahead. As they mounted up, thunder crashed overhead like an angry spirit. "Which way?" Elena asked. Ayanna pointed, southwest toward the mountains. 3 days hard riding, maybe 4 in this weather. They rode through what remained of the night, stopping only when the horses needed rest. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean and bright. But Elena knew the real storm was just beginning. "They'll come after us," she said as they watered the horses at a stream. "Yes, but not immediately. Morrison will want to organize a proper search party. That gives us maybe 6 hours head start." Elena looked back toward the fort, now just a smudge on the distant horizon. Everything she'd built there was gone. Her job, her room, her place in the world. All traded for this wild ride across Apache country with a man she barely knew. "Having second thoughts?" Ayanna asked. "No. Just taking inventory of what I'm leaving behind." "And what's that?" Elena considered the question honestly. "A life where I hid from everything that scared me. People who saw me as broken. A future where my best hope was to be someone's shameful secret." "And what are you riding toward?" "I don't know. That's the frightening part." Ayanna smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. "The best adventures start with not knowing." They rode hard through the morning, following deer trails and creek beds that wouldn't show their tracks. The country grew wilder with each mile. Tall pines gave way to red rock canyons and hidden valleys Elena never could have imagined. Around noon, they stopped in a grove of cottonwoods to rest the horses and eat. Elena's whole body ached from the hard riding, but she didn't complain. "Tell me about this place we're going," she said, sharing dried meat with Ayanna. "Canyon of the 7 Springs. My people have sheltered there for generations. High walls, fresh water, good hunting. Only a few ways in or out, all easy to defend." "And they'll accept me?" Ayanna was quiet for a moment. "They'll be suspicious, at first, a white woman appearing with an escaped prisoner. Some will think you're a spy." Elena's heart sank. "And what do you think?" "I think you gave up everything you knew to prevent a massacre. I think that speaks louder than the color of your skin." They mounted up and continued riding. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, and Elena was grateful for the hat she'd packed. Her scarred skin had always been sensitive to heat. As they climbed higher into the mountains, Ayanna began pointing out landmarks. The twisted pine that marked a water source, the rock formation that looked like a sleeping bear, the hidden trail that led to safety. "You know this land like it's part of you," Elena said. "It is part of me. Just like those scars are part of you. I still don't understand how scars can be a good thing." Ayanna reined in his horse and looked at her seriously. "My people believe that the spirits test those they plan to use for important work. Fire, battles, great losses. These are the spirits' way of making us strong enough for what's coming." "And what do you think is coming for me?" "I think you're going to be a bridge between our peoples, someone who understands both worlds." Elena touched her scarred cheek. For the first time in her life, the twisted skin didn't feel like a curse. Maybe it was a mark of something else entirely. Late that afternoon, they reached the entrance to the canyon. Elena gasped at the sight. Red walls rose hundreds of feet into the sky, carved by wind and water into fantastic shapes. A narrow opening led into shadows and mystery. Stay close, Ayana warned. The path is treacherous if you don't know it. They rode single file through the canyon entrance. The walls pressed close on both sides, blocking out most of the sky. Their horses' hooves echoed strangely in the confined space. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the canyon opened into a hidden valley. Green grass, clear streams, and scattered trees created a paradise hidden from the outside world. Scattered throughout the valley were traditional Apache dwellings, and Elena could see people moving about their daily tasks. But as soon as they emerged from the canyon mouth, everything stopped. Women grabbed children, men reached for weapons. Every eye turned toward the strangers approaching their sanctuary. Ayana! A young woman's voice rang across the valley. A girl with long black braids came running toward them, tears streaming down her face. Nayeli, Ayana breathed, sliding from his horse to catch his sister in his arms. Elena watched the reunion, feeling both happy for them and suddenly very aware that she was the outsider here. White skin in a sea of brown faces, a stranger in a sacred place. An older man approached, his face stern and suspicious. He spoke rapidly in Apache, his tone clearly questioning. Ayana replied in the same language, gesturing toward Elena several times. She caught her own name and a few words she recognized, but most of the conversation was beyond her understanding. Finally, the older man looked directly at Elena and spoke in accented English. You are the one who helped my nephew escape? Yes, Elena said, trying to keep her voice steady. Why? It was the same question Ayana had asked, but somehow more challenging coming from this weathered Apache leader. Elena slid down from her horse and stood straight, meeting his gaze despite her racing heart. Because Captain Morrison was planning to murder innocent people. Because your nephew fought alongside the captain's brother to save kidnapped women. Because it was the right thing to do. The leader studied her for a long moment, taking in her scarred face without flinching. You gave up your life among the white eyes for us? I gave up a life that wasn't really living for a chance to do something that mattered. Around them, the crowd of Apache people listened in silence. Elena could feel their eyes on her, measuring, judging, deciding whether she was friend or enemy. The leader nodded slowly. I am Diego, war chief of this band. You are welcome here, but know this. Soldiers will come looking for you both. This place will no longer be safe. Elena felt her heart sink. She'd wanted to save Ayana's people, but instead she'd brought danger to their doorstep. I'm sorry, she began, but Diego held up a hand. Don't apologize for doing what's right. Apologize only for things you should have done differently. He looked at the canyon entrance, then back at her. We have maybe 2 days before they find this place. We'll use that time to prepare. As the crowd began to disperse, returning to their interrupted tasks, Ayana stepped close to Elena. You did the right thing, he said quietly. Did I? I've put your whole tribe in danger. You prevented a massacre. Now we prepare for what comes next. Elena looked around the beautiful valley that would soon become a battleground because of her choices. She'd saved lives, but at what cost? As the sun set behind the canyon walls, painting everything in shades of gold and red, Elena realized that her real journey was just beginning. She'd found safety for Ayana and herself, but safety was... Elena woke to the sound of urgent voices outside her shelter. Dawn was just breaking over the canyon walls, painting them soft pink and gold. She'd been in the Apache camp for 2 days, learning their ways and trying to make herself useful. The women had been kind but cautious. They'd given her Apache clothing, a simple dress of soft deerskin that felt strange after years of tight corsets and heavy skirts. Some of the younger women had even begun teaching her their language, giggling when she mispronounced words. But now something was wrong. Elena could hear it in the rapid, urgent Apache being spoken outside. She pushed aside the hide that covered her shelter's entrance and stepped into the morning light. A group had gathered around Diego and Ayana. A young Apache man Elena didn't recognize stood in their center, clearly exhausted from hard travel. "What's happening?" she asked Nayeli, who stood nearby. "A messenger from another band," Nayeli whispered. "He brings news about the missing girls." Elena's heart raced. She moved closer, catching pieces of the conversation in Apache and English. "Mission San Rafael," the messenger was saying. "3 girls, being held." "How far?" Diego asked. 2 days ride east, maybe less if you push hard. Ayana's face was grim. "Is my sister among them?" The messenger nodded. "Tall girl makes baskets, she's there." Elena saw hope and desperation war in Ayana's expression. His sister Nayeli, not the one standing next to Elena, but the older sister who'd been kidnapped, was alive, but she was being held at a mission far from here. "It's a trap," Diego said firmly. "They know we'll come for the girls. They're using them as bait." "Trap or not, we can't leave them there," Ayana replied. "And we can't risk the whole band for 3 people, even if one is your sister." Elena listened to the argument with growing understanding. This was about more than rescue. It was about survival versus sacrifice. Save the few or protect the many. "What if we could get them out without fighting?" Elena said suddenly. The arguing stopped. Everyone turned to look at her. "What do you mean?" Diego asked. Elena's mind raced, putting together pieces of information. "The mission. It's a Spanish mission, right? Run by priests?" The messenger nodded. "I speak Spanish perfectly. I look like a Spanish lady. What if I could get inside as a visitor?" "Too dangerous," Ayana said immediately. "More dangerous than attacking." "With warriors, they'd be expecting that." Elena stepped forward. "But they wouldn't expect one woman asking for shelter." Diego studied her thoughtfully. "You would do this? Risk yourself for girls you've never met?" "I would do it because it's right. And because—" Elena looked at Ayana, then at Nayeli beside her. "Because these people have become my family too." The debate continued for hours. Some warriors wanted to attack directly. Others thought any rescue was too risky. But Elena's plan began to take shape. She would approach the mission as a Spanish lady whose wagon had broken down, seeking shelter. Once inside, she'd locate the girls and find a way to get them out. Ayana and 2 other warriors would wait nearby, ready to help once she signaled them. "If this goes wrong," Diego warned, "you could be killed. Or worse." "If we do nothing," Elena replied, "those girls will disappear forever." That afternoon, Elena prepared for the mission. The Apache women helped her change back into European-style clothes, a traveling dress she'd packed when fleeing the fort. They darkened her hair with plant dyes and showed her how to arrange it to partially hide her scars. "You don't look Apache anymore," Nayeli said sadly. "I'll always be Apache in my heart now," Elena replied, surprised to realize how true that was. As the sun began to set, Elena mounted one of their best horses. Ayana rode beside her to the canyon entrance, his face troubled. "I should be the one taking this risk," he said. "They'd shoot you before you got within a mile of that place. But a Spanish lady? They'll welcome me with open arms." "And if they discover who you really are?" Elena touched the pistol hidden in her saddlebags. "Then I'll fight my way out." Ayana reached over and took her hand. "In my language, there are words for different kinds of claiming. Claiming someone as property, claiming land for hunting. But the word I want to say—" He paused, searching for the right English. "It means claiming someone's heart, their spirit, their right to be exactly who they are." Elena felt her breath catch. "Ayana, I claim you, Elena Morales, not to own you, but to honor you, to see you as the spirits made you. Scars and strength and stubborn courage all together." No one had ever said anything like that to her before. In the growing twilight, with danger ahead and an uncertain future stretching before them, Elena felt more claimed, more seen, more valued than ever in her life. "I claim you too," she whispered back. "Your honor, your protective heart, your way of seeing beauty in broken things." They kissed then, gentle and fierce at the same time. When they broke apart, Elena felt like she could ride into any danger and emerge victorious. "Come back to me," Ayana said. "Always." Elena rode alone through the night, following the messenger's directions. The mission sat in a valley between low hills, its white walls glowing in the moonlight. Adobe buildings surrounded a central courtyard, with a chapel at one end and living quarters along the sides. She circled the compound carefully, noting the guards and layout. 2 men with rifles walked the perimeter. Lights burned in several windows, and somewhere inside those walls, 3 young Apache women waited for rescue. As dawn approached, Elena hid her horse in a grove of trees and walked the last half-mile to the mission gates. She arranged her face into an expression of distress and exhaustion, then began calling for help. "Please, is anyone there? My wagon is broken." A priest emerged from the main building, followed by 2 armed men. "Father Miguel," he introduced himself, a middle-aged Spanish man with kind eyes and a wary expression. "Señorita, what brings you to our remote mission?" "My wagon hit a rock and lost a wheel," Elena said, letting her voice shake with exhaustion. "I've been walking since yesterday. Please, I just need shelter until I can send for help." The priest studied her carefully. Elena kept her scarred cheek turned away and let tears gather in her eyes. "Of course, my child. We cannot turn away a fellow child of God." Father Miguel gestured toward the mission. "Come, we'll give you food and rest." Elena followed him through the gates, her eyes quickly scanning the courtyard. The mission was larger than it had appeared from outside. Several 2-story buildings, workshops, and what looked like storage areas. Plenty of places to hide prisoners. "We don't get many visitors here," Father Miguel said as he led her toward the guest quarters. "Especially not Spanish ladies traveling alone." "I was visiting family in Santa Fe," Elena lied smoothly. "My driver became ill, so I decided to continue." "Alone? Perhaps not the wisest choice." "Indeed not. This country is dangerous for travelers. Apache raiders have been active in the area." Elena forced herself to look frightened. "Apache? Here? Just last week they attacked a supply wagon. Savage creatures, completely without mercy." The priest opened a door to a small but clean room. "But you're safe now. Our walls are strong, and we have good men to protect us." Elena spent the morning resting and exploring. She attended chapel services, ate with the priests, and gradually worked her way around the compound. The guards were relaxed around a Spanish lady, treating her as harmless. By afternoon, she'd located what she was looking for. A storage building at the back of the compound had bars on its windows and a heavy lock on its door. When she passed, nearby she thought she heard quiet voices inside. That evening at dinner, Elena carefully steered the conversation toward their guests. "I heard you sometimes take in Indian converts," she said to Father Miguel. "Yes, we have a few Apache women. Here now. Lost souls we're trying to bring to Christ." His expression grew troubled, "though I fear they may be beyond saving." "May I see them? Perhaps a woman's voice might reach them better than a man's." Father Miguel considered this. "I suppose it couldn't hurt. Though I warn you, they're quite hostile." After dinner, he led Elena to the locked building. 2 guards stood outside. Father Miguel spoke quietly to them, then unlocked the heavy door. Inside, Elena's heart nearly broke. 3 young Apache women sat against the far wall, chained at the ankles. They looked up as the door opened, their eyes showing defiance despite their situation. The tallest one, she had to be Ayana's sister, met Elena's gaze directly. There was something familiar about her eyes, the same strength Elena had seen in Ayana. "These are our newest converts," Father Miguel said. "They refuse to accept Christian names or learn proper behavior." Elena stepped closer, pretending to study the prisoners. In the shadows, she caught the tall girl's eye and mouthed one word in Apache. "Ayana." The girl's eyes widened slightly, but she showed no other reaction. "Perhaps with time and patience," Elena said aloud. Then, still looking at the girl, she added in Apache, "Tomorrow night. Be ready." Father Miguel frowned. "What did you say?" "Just a prayer," Elena lied. For their souls. That night, Elena lay awake planning. She'd found the girls. Now she had to figure out how to get them out. The chains would be a problem, but she'd noticed tools in one of the workshops. And if she could create a distraction. Around midnight, she crept out of her room. The mission was quiet except for the guards. Walking their regular rounds, Elena spent the entire next day acting like a grateful guest while her mind raced with escape plans. She attended morning prayers, helped in the kitchen, and made pleasant conversation with Father Miguel. All while the hammer and chisel hidden in her room seemed to burn in her thoughts. As evening approached, she excused herself early, claiming exhaustion from her ordeal. Father Miguel blessed her kindly, never suspecting that the pious Spanish lady planned to destroy his peaceful mission. Before dawn, Elena waited until the mission settled into its nighttime routine. Guards walked their lazy patrols. Priests retired to their quarters. The only sounds were distant snores and the occasional hoot of an owl. Around 2 a.m, when the guards were most likely to be drowsy, Elena crept from her room. She'd changed back into her Apache dress, easier to move in, and it felt right for what she was about to do. The workshop was dark and quiet. Elena found the lamp oil bottles exactly where she'd left them. Her plan was simple but dangerous. Create a fire distraction on one side of the mission while freeing the girls on the other. In the confusion, they could escape through the back walls. She carried 2 bottles toward the chapel, the most important building to the priests. They'd rush to save it first, leaving fewer guards at the prison building. But as she approached the chapel, Elena heard voices. 2 guards stood near the entrance, talking quietly. They weren't supposed to be there. Strange bringing that woman here, one was saying. Father Miguel's too trusting. Spanish lady or not, something about her doesn't sit right. Elena's blood turned cold. They suspected her, which meant she had even less time than she'd thought. She backtracked toward the prison building, abandoning the fire plan. If they were watching her, she needed to move fast and quiet. The building where the girls were held sat in shadow. One guard dozed against the wall, his rifle across his knees. Elena crept closer, her heart hammering so loud she was sure he'd hear it. She was 3 feet away when the guard's eyes snapped open. "What?" he began. Elena swung the hammer without thinking. The guard slumped forward, unconscious but breathing. Elena grabbed his keys and rifle, her hands shaking. Inside the building, the 3 Apache girls looked up as Elena entered. In the dim light, she could see hope and fear warring in their faces. "I'm Elena," she whispered in Apache. "Ayana sent me." The tall girl, definitely Ayana's sister, smiled for the first time since Elena had seen her. "I am Nayeli." The other 2 are Rosa and Maria. Elena began working on the chains with the chisel and hammer, trying to be quiet. But the metal rang with each strike, echoing in the small room. "Hurry," whispered Rosa. "They'll hear." The first chain broke just as shouts erupted outside. Someone had found the unconscious guard. "This way." Elena helped Nayeli to her feet and attacked the second girl's chains. "Stop right there." Elena spun around. Father Miguel stood in the doorway with 2 armed guards, his kind face twisted with anger and betrayal. "I should have known," he said. "No proper Spanish lady travels alone in Apache country. You're one of them, aren't you?" Elena stood slowly, placing herself between the guns and the girls. "I'm someone who won't let innocent women be sold like cattle." "Innocent? They're Apache savages. We're bringing them to God. By chaining them like animals?" Father Miguel's face hardened. "By any means necessary, just like we'll deal with you." The guards raised their rifles, but Elena was ready. She dove sideways, rolling behind a wooden crate as bullets splintered the wall where she'd been standing. "Run," she shouted to the girls in Apache, but Rosa and Maria were still chained. Only Nayeli could move freely. Instead of running, she grabbed a piece of broken chain and swung it at the nearest guard. The fight that followed was chaos. Elena used the stolen rifle to keep the guards pinned down, while Nayeli fought with desperate courage. Elena managed. to break Maria's chains, but Rosa was still trapped when more guards arrived. "Enough!" Father Miguel shouted. "Surrender now or we'll kill all of you." Elena looked around the small room. 3 guards with rifles. More coming. No way out except through them. But then she heard something beautiful. The sound of Apache war. Cries echoing across the mission compound. Ayana had come for them. The guards' attention turned toward the sounds of battle outside. Elena used the distraction to break Rosa's remaining chain. Then all 4 women rushed the door together. The mission courtyard was alive with fighting. Apache warriors had scaled the walls and were battling guards hand to hand. In the firelight, someone had managed to start Elena's planned blaze after all. She could see Ayana moving like a shadow, striking down anyone who threatened the girls. "This way." Elena led the 3 girls toward the back wall where the fighting was lightest. But, as they ran across the courtyard, a rifle cracked behind them. Elena felt fire explode across her left shoulder, spinning her around. She hit the ground hard, pain shooting through her body. "Elena." Nayeli stopped running and knelt beside her. "Keep going," Elena gasped. "Get to safety." "Not without you." Elena looked down at her shoulder. Blood soaked her dress, but the bullet had passed through. Painful but not fatal. She could still move. "Help me up." With Nayeli supporting her, Elena struggled to her feet. Around them, the battle was winding down. Most of the guards had fled or fallen. The Apache warriors were regrouping near the main gate. Ayana appeared out of the smoke and chaos, his face desperate with worry. When he saw Elena wounded, something changed in his expression. Not fear, but fury. "Who shot her?" he demanded. Before anyone could answer, Father Miguel emerged from behind the chapel, a pistol in his hand. "The devil's own daughter," he snarled, "corrupting our holy work." He raised the gun toward Elena, but Ayana moved faster. In one fluid motion, he drew his knife and threw it. The blade took Father Miguel in the shoulder, spinning him around and sending the pistol flying. "We're leaving," Ayana announced. "All of us now." The Apache warriors gathered the rescued girls and began moving toward the mission gates. Elena tried to keep up, but her wounded shoulder made her clumsy and slow. "I'm slowing you down," she told Ayana. "Then I'll carry you. The others are safe. You're bleeding." End of discussion. Ayana swept Elena up in his arms despite her protests. The motion sent pain shooting through her shoulder, but she found she didn't care. She was alive, the girls were free, and the man she loved was carrying her toward safety. They rode hard through the pre-dawn darkness, putting distance between themselves and any pursuit. Elena drifted in and out of consciousness, held secure in Ayana's arms as his horse carried them both. When she woke fully, they were back in the canyon. Sunlight streamed down from the high walls, and she was lying on soft furs inside a shelter. Apache women moved around her, treating her wound with gentle hands and healing herbs. "You're awake." Ayana appeared beside her, relief clear on his face. "The girls? Safe. All 3 of them. Thanks to you." Elena tried to sit up, but Ayana gently pushed her back down. "Rest. You lost a lot of blood. The mission burned too. The ground. My warriors made sure of that." Elena felt a moment of sadness for Father Miguel, misguided as he'd been. But then she thought of the 3 young women now free to return to their families, and the sadness faded. "I have something for you," Ayana said. From a leather pouch, he pulled out a silver medallion. Not the army one, but something else. Apache work, with symbols carved deep into the metal. "What is it?" "A claiming medallion, made by my grandmother years ago." Ayana's voice grew serious. "Among my people, when a man wants to claim a woman, not as property, but as partner, as equal as the other half of his spirit, he gives her one of these." Elena stared at the beautiful medallion, understanding flooding through her. "You told me once that no man had ever claimed you," Ayana continued, "that your scars made you unmarriageable, unwanted. But I see those scars as proof that the spirits tested you and found you strong enough for great things. He placed the medallion gently around her neck. I claim you, Elena Morales. Not to own you or change you or hide you away. I claim your courage, your stubborn heart, your willingness to risk everything for what's right. I claim every scar that tells the story of your strength. Elena felt tears on her cheeks. And I claim you, Ayanna. Your honor, your protective spirit, your way of seeing beauty where others see only damage. Then we are claimed each by the other. Elena touched the medallion, feeling its weight against her chest. For the first time in her life, she understood what it meant to be truly seen, truly valued, truly claimed by someone who loved, not despite her scars, but because of everything they represented. 6 months later, Elena stood at the edge of a new trading post built where Apache territory met the expanding frontier. The building behind her served as both home and business, a place where two worlds could meet in peace instead of war. Her shoulder had healed completely, leaving only a small scar to join the others. She wore all her marks openly now, no longer hiding behind turned faces or high collars. The Apache children who came to trade called her Firewalker, one who had survived the flames and could walk between worlds. Captain Morrison had eventually learned the truth about his brother's death. The official reports now credited Lieutenant Morrison with dying heroically while trying to rescue kidnapped women. The captain never